Yep.
So how do we start? We just.
So we're good to go?
We're good to go. We're on live. We're talking to the people.
All right.
Guys hear us?
Okay. All right.
All right. We're live.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so
Well, I understand, Margaret Prescott, that we're on live here around the world.
are we live on around
Right.
the world? Well, this is Margaret Prescott. I'm sitting here with Danny Glover. Why don't I do a proper intro, Danny?
Okay then.
Okay, and for people to know who I am the host of Sojourner Truth on Pacifica Radio in Southern California, KPFK 90.7 FM, heard around the world on our website, kpfk.org. And on my activist hat, I'm also with Women of Color in the Global Women's Strike. And we have sent greetings to the occupations all around the world. From our global network, we're not aligned with any political party. We're totally independent of political parties. And I'd like to send greetings from my sisters in Guyana, in Latin America, and other sisters in the Caribbean region, our sisters in Haiti, also in the UK, in Peru, in Lima, Peru, and other parts of Peru, and also our Dalit sisters and other sisters in the countryside in Chhattisgarh, in India, as well as the continent of Africa. So that's our global network. And I'm delighted to be here with my friend and comrade, actor and activist Danny Glover, likely known to many of you. A lot of people know him of Lethal Weapon fame, but Danny has done so much work, including the company with Joycelyn Barnes, Louverture Films Productions. They've got an incredible new film, a project that they're part of called Black Power Mixtape, 1967 to 1975. And Danny, I'm hoping that all of the activists from all of the occupations watching figure out a way to really see that film, or some way, somehow get it to the occupations, because it really gives a sense of the history that made the way for this kind of movement that's happening here. So many people who had put their lives on the line, more than 60,000 people arrested, mainly black people, more than 250,000 people killed, okay, fighting for justice, for economic justice, for racial justice. And that movement has come full circle now. And we're really hoping that for the kids coming in from the suburbs, those who are college educated, from white communities now not finding their way, not finding a job, coming together with those of us who are really catching hell and have caught hell for decades. Poor people in the United States have gotten poorer than 3 decades ago, particularly communities of color, black and brown communities. But you know what? It's the 99%. It's about us finding our way to each other without sidelining the specific issues of who we are, right? Of making all of those issues visible, whether we're indigenous, whether we're black, whether we're brown, whether we're Jewish, we're Palestinian. And we were so encouraged. Danny, it's amazing that this revolution right now happening with all these occupations got kicked off in North Africa, in the Middle East, with the Arab Spring, and the women there, that everybody thinks these women are so oppressed.
Absolutely.
And if you look at the women in Yemen, you see them with their chador on and being just more militant than anybody that we have seen.
Well, the whole process of change, the whole process of evolution that's happening, it's extraordinary, because we don't get to this moment just right now. This moment has been going on and building. And we often talk about the periods of time, whether in our country, whether it's the civil rights movement, the Black Power movement, all the movements for enfranchisement, and for fellowship, all the movements to be imaginative and creative with the whole idea of democracy. That's what these movements are about. We see those movements. These are descendants. We are descendants of those movements. These young men and women who are out here, descendants of all the movements that come before them, whether it's in labor, whether it's around women, whether it's around struggles. That's the most incredible thing that we see out here. Making the links, making the connections. Now, I got some questions here that people wanted to ask me, and there's several ones. And one of them certainly is that when we talk about education, one of the ones I'm taking last one, we talk about education. Let's look at the educational system here that we live in. We talk about bullying in school and everything else. But let us look about something else that's happening. Why Why do children lose their curiosity, most children, by the 4th grade? So something's happening in the whole idea of an education. Whether it needs a place-based education, how do we reframe the discussion about education? It is almost criminal in the terms of the way in which we treat children. It is criminal, and not only that, the way in which we do not create the kind of space for them to learn and to feel that they're valued, to feel that they have a place in society, to feel that they are creative, analytical, and that's what is happening here. We have to understand education also in relationship to what is happening in the greater society. You see that schools that fail are in communities that fail. We see that children are failed in school or in communities that fail in schools. All these important ways to look at education. We also look at what do we mean by democracy? When we talk about the whole ideas of a system of democracy where people are critical, and that's what I'm saying. And that democracy is about dissent. So when students are critical about President Hugo Chavez's policy in Venezuela, that's an important link in democracy. It's a part of a discussion, a discourse about it. We don't become perfect. What we have to do is continue to evolve. Those systems that have to become evolved. And when we're critical and evolving and have information and to act on, the right information to act on, then we make the choice that we need to make. So it's important that we have a sense of dissent, active participation by students in every body in terms of democracy. What about Troy Davis? We know that Troy Davis's murder, and let's say it's put it right, his execution was a murder.
A lynching.
It was a lynching. It was a modern day lynching.
That's right.
That's what it is. That's what Troy Davis' story is, a modern day lynching. It's just as those the citizens, the white citizens councils and all those lynched African Americans half a century ago, whatever. This is what Troy Davis's lynching is about. This is about the truth, and we have to tell the truth about that. We have to tell the truth about not only his lynching, but the lynchings that have happened among others. We have to tell the truth about the lynchings that have continue to happen in the service of maintaining fear and power within the system itself. And that is what Troy represents. The truth was out there. Everyone had the truth in their hand, and they could have said it. But you had to maintain this level of fear and disempowerment. This is what Troy Davis's lynching was about. We talk about that. What does the economy look like? We're talking about the evolution of economics. We're talking about the evolution of economics that brought us to a particular point in time. Industrialization has brought us to a particular point. Discovery of fossil fuel has brought us to a different stage. What does society look like without them now? How do we now take all the creative ingenuity that's come out of this process of industrialization? How do we now take that ingenuity? How do we now take that creativity? How do we now put it at the service of creating alternatives to what we describe when we describe work, when we describe not only work, when we describe our relationships in communities, when we describe the social structures that we live in, the family. How do we now reimagine that? And I think because of the information we have and because of the technologies that we have available for, we can get across this, not only save ourselves as a species, not ever talk about employment and jobs in a different way, but also talk about our relationship to the planet in a different way. If we're going to talk about the economic systems that we look at, we're going to have to talk about one in which we nurture Mother Earth. As the Native American community has always said, 7 generations. What does it look like 7 generations from now? What it looks like from that particular point is how we know that we've done our service to the planet itself. Those are the things that we're talking. There's so many questions that we have to ask. The fact that we're on this chat right here and talking about those things and asking ourselves questions, not only is in real time, that's important because the dynamics, the contradictions are changing all the time. We have to be up to the task to be critical and have the analysis of what the contradictions are and the dialectics around what the contradictions are as we create our new future. And that's what we're about, creating this new future. Hail, hail, hail to all those people who are occupying in the 477 cities around the world. Thank you.
You know, and Danny, I mean, what you're saying is so very important. And I've heard that there are a lot of discussions going on where the various occupations are, about the power relations among the races in terms of the involvement of black and brown communities. There's a brother in Detroit that has started something called Occupy the Hood. And I was talking with Erica Huggins. For those who don't know her name, she was a member of the Black Panther Party here in Los Angeles, one of the leaders of the Black Panther Party, and her husband, John Huggins, when their daughter was just 3 weeks old, was assassinated on the campus of the UCLA campus. She was then arrested along with Bobby Seale and charged with conspiracy. You know, a lot of people have done a lot making the way. And she said, you know, Margaret, part of what we have to do is also make ourselves present. You know, if we are there and we form some kind of outreach group of black and brown communities, occupy the hood or whatever, but, you know, we have to find a way towards each other. I mean, we cannot assume, I mean, it would be great that, let's say, a college-educated kid from Orange County who may have had no interaction whatsoever with black and brown people, but he knows that there's something wrong. He knows that he's part of the 99%, right? So it is that dialogue that we have with each other, that understanding that we have with each other, that we'll find our way to each other so that he knows that when a brother raises an issue of police brutality, that comes from the reality of what the experience has been of driving while black and brown. And it's not about trying to create any enemies, but it's really about bringing out, this is the reality, this is the terror that I live with day in and day out. Or if I'm an undocumented person, that's living with terror, because at any moment you could be tracked down, you could be put in detention, your children could be snatched from you. Some of the folks who are here now with DCFS, Give Us Back Our Children, across this country, there's an epidemic of the mixing up of poverty and neglect. And it is mainly impacting low-income children of any color, but disproportionately black and brown children, where they're saying, well, you have a failure to neglect. Why? Because maybe you're homeless. Because you're homeless, that doesn't mean you don't love your children. That doesn't mean you don't want to take care of them. Because your income is low. Or because you're in a, you know, in the black families, we've got extended families where somebody is your cousin or your aunt or your uncle or your grandma, but it may not be a blood relative, but these are people that help to raise you. But in the child welfare system, they don't recognize that cultural difference. So they'll come in to somebody who has raised somebody and say, well, you're not a blood relation, so we're going to take that child and put that child in foster care, where we know very well that children are traumatized when they are snatched from the family that loves them and placed with strangers. Also, we know that 1 out of 3 children in foster care are abused emotionally, physically, or sexually, that more than 70% of young people that wind up in prisons have been through the foster care system right here in the United States. There's something wrong with that picture, and some of these families are right here with Occupy Los Angeles, and this is an opportunity for the world to know what their situation is, because they're part of the 99%, and we're finding our way together. So before people start, you know, fighting and getting into some separatism and saying we can't be over there because there are a bunch of white people over there or whatever, but to know that we have to put our demands forward. We have to get ourselves together and put them forward in a cohesive way, because you know what, Danny? We're not going to win up against this beast we're up against just as black people, or just as brown people, you know what I mean, or just as people in a particular country, or because we are, you know, deep into our culture. We have to find our way towards each other, because it's a huge enemy, and that's part of what this growing, incredible Occupy movement is doing, is it's spreading around the world.
Absolutely. You know, I think we can't say any, I mean, there's no way in which we can talk about how proud we are of all of you who are out there, who are occupying, who are sleeping in tents, who are sleeping in all kind of different kind of weather, incremental weather and everything else, who are occupying these cities, who are demanding change. You know, you're in solidarity with the extraordinary movement of people, the extraordinary evolution of people, you know, and we're fighting for the world's children. We're fighting for all our children, you know, right here.
Here's a little brother. You got something to say? People around the world are hearing you.
Hi. The DCFS is really working hard.
Yeah? Why? Why?
because we want our children to come back, and people are taking them.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you. Want to tell them your name?
Hello, my name is Zaire.
And how old are you, Zaire?
6 years old.
All righty. And what do you think that resources and money in this world should do?
They
Should be used for?
They should go into schools so the schools can do things with their kids.
All righty. Well, Zaire, thank you so very much, Zaire. Ruth was a grandmother over here. You got a shout out, Ruth?
Yes.
Go on. Give a quick shout out, Ruth.
Yes. I'm a grandmother here, and I'm shouting out for women around the world and men who want to send their greetings and solidarity to Occupy Los Angeles from the International Jewish Anti-Zionist Network, from Payday Men's Network in the U.S. and UK, and from the Red Thread in Guyana in Latin America. These are women and men who are working 24/7 and are thrilled that we are able to be here and participate in this Occupy LA. Thank you.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right,
you.
and Ruth and Sydney, who's a registered nurse. Sydney, a registered nurse here.
Come on.
Shout out, Sydney.
Quick shout out, Sydney. This is themed around the world. We're around the world. All right then.
I have to watch my language.
Okay.
I wanted to give a shout out to everybody there, and I want to give a shout out also from other people who would like to be here and are not able to be here today, like the Haiti Action Committee and the Women's Strike International Working Group on Haiti, and the Utility Workers Union of America, who have pledged support for Occupy LA and have been active in Occupy movements in other places. The Utility Workers Local in Los Angeles, Local 132, is in very tough negotiations right now with Southern California Gas, and they may be facing a strike. So if they call on the rest of us in Occupy LA for support and help, I hope everybody will join me in supporting them in their efforts as well. Also, just as a nurse and a grandmother, and honoring my mom, who died a year ago tomorrow, who is a teacher, I want to say we need resources for people. We need it for education. We need it for health. We need it for all of the things that help people to grow. And so that's part of the reason that I'm here today.
All right then.
All right.
What's that, brother? Hey. All right.
Hello to everyone. My name is Atalachinoli Pescacoat, and I'm giving a shout out from to you all. Our name, the group's name that we belong to is DCFS Kills Back Our Children, and it's a global network that's starting to defend our children from being falsely detained from the Child Protective Services. So I am here with family members that are fighting the system for unjustly reasons, and we are here also in solidarity with Occupy LA, Occupy Wall Street, and the multi-organizations around the world that are raising up to this issue, because this is a global issue, an indigenous issue as well. So here we are. Thank you, and we'll be in touch. Thank you.
All right.
All right. Okay, thank you. I think they're going to come back to us in about 5 minutes.
Okay.
So that was really great, Danny, to get a shout out, because the people we just heard from are folks, regular folks in the community.
Yeah.
You know, a nurse, a grandmother. Atlachinoli is a caregiver. His wife is actually a wheelchair user in a wheelchair, so he's the caregiver for their 2 children as well as for their wife, and they're trying to survive on practically next to nothing.
Exactly.
Each month, and yet he finds time to be in the community and to volunteer and to be down here at Occupy LA. I mean, these are some of my real heroes.
Well, they are real heroes and sheroes, you know,
That's
because
right.
they're the ones who are under the gun of what's happening. They're the ones who face the blunt of what is happening in this economic downturn and what is happening to people. But they've always been the ones who've taken on the ones who most impacted. Stream it down.
The stream is down. Okay.
Okay.
Great. We need to go anyway.
All right then.
We need to go.
All right.
It's back up. It's back up now.
Okay.
She was supposed to come back in 5 minutes because I thought maybe where these tents are, you can see a little bit of the structure that they
Well,
have.
let's go see
Before
some of
you
that
have
now.
to go. Yeah.
Well, let's do this now. Okay.
Can we do that now?
Let's do that now.
Can we go now?
Yeah.
Yeah. We're gonna go now.
Can we go now? Who's it? Who's
No.
the point person over here? You gotta wait. Hang on.
Yeah, you gotta hit.
Point person.